Hello and welcome back. If you are new to the channel, I make games and this is my devlog. In past videos, I talk about improving game development speed and make games without wasting time. So let's take a look today to data, save and load, and 3 ways to do it: the hard way, the smart way, and the genius way. So you are in the middle of your game development and now you want to save your player progress, or maybe you want to save your level or game map. Whatever it is, you want to store and retrieve data. Many developers leave this to a very late stage of development because it looks like a piece of cake. Very easy to do. So how complicated can it be? The hard way. The simple way, and not a good way to do it, is to write a save function and write yourself every single value into a file. Then write a loader to retrieve every single value back into the game. This is very time consuming and this is how people used to do it. Can you see the problem? There are 3 main problems with it. First, adding manually each value takes a lot of time, and every time you add a new value to your objects, you need to modify the save and load function. It is so easy to make a mistake. This leads to an incredible waste of time and effort. By the time you finish, you will get old, very old. Second, any new value or remove value will make the previous data incompatible. Previous data will not have the same format unless you manually take care of each value every single time. And third, many things do not translate directly into a value. When I mean value, I mean simple values like numbers or text. But you will also need to write relationships between different things in your game, and that is not easily translated into text. So you will need to write special code to handle those things. So this is one of the worst ways to save your game state. Let me put an example here. Let's say you have a parent and put a reference to the child, and then in the child you put a reference to the parent. How will you put that reference between parents and child into text format? With a simple text file save, it will require to write very specific ways to link them. So that means a lot more work for you. So using text files only works for very simple data structures. Think about a simulation game or city builder game. Can you write all the game information of that game into a simple text file? That will take a lot of time to make, and this is not a good way to do it. Now that you know that, you try the smart way. You pick up XML or JSON file formats. Both are very similar in use. These two allow you to save values in a structured format that can be easily read by humans. So you can create a generic save function and use a library already available in your game engine like Unity, Godot, Unreal. All of them have a way to do that. Or if you are using frameworks like Monogame based on C#, you can use directly the Visual Studio libraries that will convert any object of your game into a readable XML or JSON string that can be saved again into a file. This makes this process a little bit easier since the heavy lift of converting your game data into text can be written into a file is done automatically by the library. And this library will also allow you to read and put it back into your game without you having to write every single variable in the save and load functions. This saves you a lot of time and easily solves issue number 1, but it doesn't address issue number 2 and number 3. Data has to be in order, and if you add or remove things, your previous save data will not be compatible. Your load function will fail because it expects exactly what your object needs in the right order. Same if you add or remove things. On top of that, there are still things that you cannot easily save directly into a text file, especially if you have references to other things like objects. So for more complex data structures, this will not be able to save those things unless you write a way to encode and decode those objects. That is a big waste of time again. So what are we looking for? There are 5 main things to look for. First, we need a way to save and load data that will be automatically encoded into a file. No need to write any single variable that needs to be stored. Second, data can be saved or loaded with new fields or delete fields automatically, so we can preserve compatibility with old and new versions. Third, a way to select what will be saved. In many cases, we do not need to save every single thing. For example, temporary variables that will be recreated automatically by the game itself. Fourth, allow us to save very complex recursive data structures and objects. These things usually is not possible with plain XML or JSON. And fifth, get a compact file compressed so we do not waste disk space interface. This will prevent the player from modifying the files and decrease load times, since the file will be smaller. So what will provide these 5 things in an easy library? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Data contract with serialization. So what is a data contract? A data contract is a formal agreement between a service and a client that abstractly describes the data to be exchanged. It is just a way for the data to tell the library what will be stored and how it should be encoded in binary form so anything can get inside. And for this you only need very few steps. So let me show you this genius way to store it. First, add this to your class. Second, if you have a class that can be referenced by others and the same class can be referenced by the parent, that will create a circular relationship like parent and children to parents. In those cases you need to add this line to tell the handler that this can be a reference. Pretty simple. And third, any field that you want to save requires only to announce itself as a data member. Like this, any field with the label data member will be automatically saved and loaded into your objects. Even if you add new fields later, the load function will still work. And all of this works like black magic for you. All of this will ensure your data can be encoded and decoded without any extra work. But how do we save and load data? This is the second part. The serialization process needs to use a binary serializer that will solve any of the other problems for the complex data structures that cannot be saved and loaded by the simple text serializers. For this, you need to create a file stream, which is the file output, and the data contract serializer. If you want to compress the data, you can use a gzip stream like this, so the code will include only these few lines, where T is the class that you want to save. It can be the main game itself, with all the required fields needed for the game to work. And for loading the data, you only need these lines of code, where T again is the same object you decided to save. In this case, the data is compressed, so gzip stream is there, and this will put all your data back to where it was, same as last time. To illustrate a little bit better this, in a previous video I talked about iterative graphic user interfaces for game development, and this is a sample of that library. All the user interface created by the library can be either created in code or through user interface. But how you will save all the user interface into a file without having to code it? It is quite trivial to put all the user interface into a file with this method. I keep adding and removing fields into my user interface library, and it still works flawlessly. And all of that is saved in a compressed XML binary file. For your reference, my game editor uncompressed user interface is about 12 megabytes inside, while the compressed version is only 196 KB, with more than 1000 controls including windows, buttons, panels, checkboxes, images, and so on. The editor and all my game's user interface are saved this way, without me having to write any additional code. I can reuse the same save and load process for anything: user interface, game configuration, player progress, anything. It saves a lot of time by reusing this way. I hope you can implement it into your games, because this was a game changer for me. In the past, I had to manually save every single thing in my game, and it used to take a lot of effort, so much that I couldn't make much progress for weeks. Now, with this method, I do not have to worry for any complex data structure, for any change I made to the objects, and it always works. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you save and load your game files, your game maps, game configuration? All of that and much more works perfectly with this little code. And if you want to support my work, please click like and subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you do not miss my next update. Thank you so much for watching my journey, and see you next week.